You are looking at land defined by geographic extremes and historical intersections. Covering over 880,000 square kilometers, this territory stretches from the warm waters of the Arabian Sea to the glacial peaks of the highest mountain ranges on the planet. It is a nation of more than 240 million people, making it the fifth most populous country in the world. You are about to discover a geography that fractures into distinct environmental zones, holding fertile agricultural plains, vast high-altitude cold deserts, deep rocky canyons, and dense urban megacities. This landscape serves as a geological collision zone where the Indian and Eurasian tectonic plates meet, forcing the Earth upward to create 5 of the 14 highest peaks on the globe. Beyond the physical terrain, this is a hub of deep human antiquity. Trade routes have crossed these rivers and valleys for more than 5 millennia, carrying silk, spices, and cultural practices between the Mediterranean, Central Asia, and the Indian subcontinent. Today, over 70 distinct languages are spoken across these varied regions, with Punjabi, Sindhi, Pashto, and Balochi leading the demographic maps. You will see fortresses built entirely of baked desert mud, modern highways carved directly into vertical stone cliffs, and mosques coated in centuries-old geometric tile work. This is Pakistan, a complex framework of geology, climate, and human endurance. The journey across its varied surface begins where the Earth rises sharply into the atmosphere, taking you to high-altitude zones where survival requires adapting to extreme physical conditions. Rising in the western Himalayas, Nanga Parbat anchors the landscape as the 9th highest mountain in the world. Its summit reaches an elevation of 8,126 meters above sea level. Unlike other peaks in the region, Nanga Parbat stands largely isolated, dropping dramatically into the Indus River Valley below. This vertical relief creates one of the most rapid elevation changes on Earth, plunging over 7,000 meters within a 27-kilometer radius. Mountaineers refer to this massive structure as the Killer Mountain. The rock faces feature sheer ice walls, constant avalanches, an unpredictable atmospheric pressure system. Between the late 19th century and the mid-20th century, dozens of highly trained climbers lost their lives attempting to navigate its treacherous upper ridges. The first successful ascent was recorded in 1953 by Austrian climber Hermann Buhl, who completed the final stage of the climb alone and without supplemental oxygen. At the base of the peak, deep glacial fissures carve through the stone. These immense rivers of ice advance and retreat with the seasonal temperature fluctuations, grinding the solid bedrock into a fine glacial silt. Fairy Meadows. Directly below the massive northern face of Nanga Parbat lies a vast high-altitude grassland known as Fairy Meadows. Positioned at an elevation of 3,300 meters, and this alpine pasture serves as a critical base camp for climbers and researchers. The meadows are bordered by dense alpine forests, predominantly made up of ancient blue pine and Himalayan birch trees. These forests provide a vital ecological buffer against soil erosion on the steep mountain slopes. During the severe winter months, temperatures in this valley plummet well below freezing, and thick snowpack entirely blocks the narrow access routes. The local inhabitants, primarily semi-nomadic herders, adapt their architectural techniques to survive. Their homes are constructed using interlocking wooden beams and thick stone walls designed to trap heat and withstand the immense weight of accumulated snow on the roofs. Accessing these remote settlements requires navigating highly dangerous, unpaved mountain tracks carved directly into the sides of the Rykot Valley. These roads offer no guardrails, and experienced drivers must constantly assess the daily risk of sudden rockfalls and unstable gravel. When the snow melts, the terrain reveals deep gorges where glacial meltwater rushes violently downward to feed the larger river systems below. The intense geographic isolation of this entire region has successfully preserved unique local dialects and daily customs, keeping external influences largely out. Yet, moving south from these frozen, vertical environments, the land transitions dramatically, abandoning the snow entirely for vast, sun-scorched plains. Emerging suddenly from the shifting sands of the deep Cholistan Desert is the massive square defensive structure of Darawar Fort. Built in the 9th century by a Hindu Rajput ruler, the fortress was later captured and rebuilt by the Nawabs of Bahawalpur in the 18th century. Its walls span an impressive 1,500 meters in circumference and stand 30 meters high. 40 massive circular bastions define its outer perimeter, painstakingly constructed from locally sourced mud and fired clay bricks. This formidable architecture allowed the fort to serve as a vital stronghold, controlling crucial desert trade routes. Directly adjacent to the walls sits the elegant Abbasi Mosque, originally constructed in 1849. Designed entirely with pure white marble, the mosque features 3 prominent domes and reflects heavy Mughal architectural influence. The stark white stone creates a very sharp visual contrast against the surrounding red brick walls of the fort and the harsh, arid tones of the dry desert landscape. Located within the ancient city of Multan, the tomb of Shah Rukn-e-Alam is a prime example of pre-Mughal Islamic architecture. Built entirely between 1320 and 1324, the enormous mausoleum formally honors a highly revered regional Sufi saint. The structure features a distinctive octagonal base, sloping exterior walls, and a massive white dome spanning 15 meters in diameter. Its exterior surface is extensively decorated with intricate blue and white glazed tiles, intricately carved wood, and detailed geometric brickwork. The massive tomb sits elevated on a central mound, clearly visible from across the sprawling urban grid of Multan. The city itself is recognized as one of the oldest continuously inhabited urban centers in the South Asian subcontinent, originally established as an agricultural and economic hub along the banks of the Chenab River. Returning to the deep expanses of the Cholistan region, the sheer isolation of Darawar Fort becomes fully apparent. The desert spans 25,800 square kilometers, defined by undulating sand dunes and extreme water scarcity. Building a massive fortification of this immense scale required extensive logistical planning and strict resource management, and water had to be drawn from deep underground wells located specifically within the fort walls to sustain long military sieges. The continuous exposure to harsh winds and extreme thermal fluctuation slowly erodes the baked clay over time. Ongoing preservation efforts are constantly required to prevent the bastions from fully collapsing back into the desert floor. The stark geometry of the walls stands as a clear record of engineering engineered to outlast empires. However, the arid heat of the southern plains stands in direct opposition to the extreme glaciated environment waiting high up in the northern Karakoram range. The Karakoram mountain range forms a massive impenetrable natural border spanning the high frontiers of Pakistan, China, and India. This extremely heavy geological formation contains 4 massive peaks exceeding 8,000 meters, alongside some of the largest non-polar glaciers currently existing in the world. The Baltoro Glacier alone extends for a total of 63 kilometers, creating an enormous moving highway of solid ice navigating through jagged, vertical granite spires. At the far end of this deep glacial corridor stands K2, the second highest mountain on Earth. Reaching a staggering elevation of 8,611 meters, it is widely considered the single most difficult and deadly dangerous climb in modern existence. While Mount Everest sees hundreds of successful summits annually, K2 successfully repels the vast majority of trained mountaineers who attempt its steep, technical rock ridges. The mountain's prominent geometric pyramid shape subjects all approaching climbers to severe, unbroken physical exposure to the harshest elements. Winds at these altitudes regularly exceed 200 kilometers per hour, creating localized storm systems that can drop temperatures below -50 degrees Celsius instantly. The primary climbing routes feature near vertical rock sections covered in unstable black ice. One of the most notorious sections, the bottleneck, requires navigating directly beneath towering seracs, massive pillars of glacial ice that can fracture and collapse without warning. An avalanche at this extreme altitude leaves absolutely no practical room for human error or mechanical rescue. The atmospheric oxygen concentration near the highest summit is only a third of the standard density found at sea level, pushing human physiology to the absolute brink of systemic failure. Establishing a base camp here requires weeks of trekking over broken glacial moraine, carrying essential supplies by foot and pack animal. Every piece of equipment, food ration, and medical supply must be meticulously calculated. The sheer visual scale of this frozen environment completely dwarfs human ambition, serving as a harsh reminder of strict physical limitations. Far below these deadly peaks, isolated valleys host ancient cultural traditions tied closely to the high-altitude terrain. Situated at an altitude of 3,700 meters, the Shandur Pass connects the Gilgit-Baltistan region with the Chitral district. This vast, flat, elevated expanse is internationally famous for hosting the very highest polo ground in the entire world. Polo is deeply ingrained in the history of Central Asian and Persian nomadic cultures, initially developed as a training exercise for cavalry units. Every summer, the high-altitude meadow transforms into an intense, competitive arena where traditional rival teams from Gilgit and Chitral clash. The rules played here are heavily unstandardized, largely lacking the strict modern regulations found internationally. The match demands extraordinary endurance from both the riders and the horses, as the thin mountain air rapidly depletes cardiovascular reserves. Yes, the festival draws thousands of spectators who camp on the surrounding slopes, celebrating a localized cultural heritage that thrives in the extreme geography. Leaving the severe geographic isolation of the high northern mountains, the landscape rapidly compresses down into the densely populated agricultural plains of Punjab. At the historic core of this region lies Lahore, a massive city currently holding over 13 million residents and serving as the primary cultural heart of Pakistan. The urban layout is a direct physical archive of successive empires, heavily defined by the expansive footprint of the Mughal era. The Badshai Mosque absolutely dominates the local skyline, deliberately constructed in 1673 entirely from imported red sandstone brought from Rajasthan. Yet its central courtyard is vast enough to hold 100,000 worshippers, representing one of the largest architectural feats of the 17th century. Directly across the adjacent park stands the Minar-e-Pakistan, a modern concrete tower erected to mark the exact location where the resolution for an independent Muslim state was passed in 1940. The streets of the walled city nearby operate as a dense labyrinth of commerce, carrying an unbroken line of human activity that has persisted for over 2 millennia. Trade, language, and architectural design have constantly layered over one another, creating an urban density where every structure holds historical gravity. This heavily concentrated, deeply historical human element represents only one specific facet of the nation's complex identity. Because just beyond the boundaries of these ancient urban centers, the Earth breaks apart entirely, revealing a completely different geological reality that is waiting to be explored. But venturing deeper into the northern altitudes reveals environments where human engineering and geology are tightly bound. The Hunza Valley sits surrounded by peaks that frequently exceed 7,000 meters. The agricultural fields here are cut directly into the steep slopes using ancient terracing techniques. These specific terraces are kept alive by a highly complex system of channels that distribute glacial meltwater to every cultivated plot. Accessing these isolated settlements often requires navigating extreme infrastructure. The Hussaini Suspension Bridge stretches across the fast-flowing Hunza River. It consists of roughly 400 widely spaced wooden planks suspended by steel cables. High winds constantly batter the structure, forcing travelers to maintain extreme balance while crossing the freezing violent water far below. Surviving in this valley requires constant adaptation to a shifting, unstable terrain that is highly prone to massive geological events. Living here demands a total submission to the physical limits of the high mountains. In 2010, a massive landslide blocked the entire Hunza River, permanently submerging villages and creating Adabad Lake, which spans 21 kilometers in length. Overlooking this transformed geography is Baltit Fort. Built 700 years ago, its timber and stone architecture directly controlled the regional trade routes passing through the valley below, securing a crucial stronghold for the local rulers over centuries. Moving higher into the alpine zones brings you to the central Karakoram National Park, covering an expansive 10,000 square kilometers. This protected sanctuary encompasses the highest concentration of tall peaks on Earth, including the K2 Massif. The park is characterized by immense glacial systems and stark vertical rock walls. Despite the extreme cold and minimal oxygen, a highly specialized biological ecosystem thrives here. The terrain supports populations of the Siberian ibex, easily identified by their heavily ridged, backward-curving horns. These herbivores navigate near vertical cliff faces to find sparse vegetation. Sharing this harsh territory is the snow leopard, an apex predator perfectly camouflaged against the gray and white granite. Their thick fur and wide paws allow them to hunt efficiently in deep snow and sub-zero temperatures. The survival of these species depends entirely on their ability to endure one of the most physically demanding, resource-scarce environments currently existing anywhere on the planet, totally isolated from the world below. Following the Hunza River further north reveals the distinct geological formation known as the Pasu Cones, also called Tupapdan. These jagged, highly symmetrical granite peaks rise sharply to an elevation of 6,106 meters. The extreme verticality of these mountains prevents significant snow accumulation on their steepest faces, leaving the bare, sun-baked rock completely exposed. The cones were formed by immense tectonic pressure forcing the bedrock upward, followed by millions of years of intense glacial erosion that carved their sharp, pointed summits, and they stand as a massive natural barricade above the valley floor. The visual uniformity of the peaks creates a stark, dominating horizon line that dwarfs the small agricultural settlements located directly at their base. The constant weathering process continues to shape this terrain, slowly eroding the rock over vast geographical timescales. Beyond the granite valleys lies a drastic geographical anomaly. The Katpana Desert, located near Skardu, is one of the highest altitude cold deserts in the world. Positioned at an elevation of 2,226 meters, this environment completely disrupts typical climate expectations. It features massive expanses of fine, wind-blown sand dunes, completely surrounded by towering, snow-capped mountain ranges. During the harsh winter months, so the temperature drops severely, and the golden sand dunes are frequently blanketed in a thick layer of white snow. This creates a highly unusual visual contrast of an arid desert landscape locked in freezing alpine conditions. The strong valley winds constantly shift the sand, reshaping the dunes daily and erasing any tracks left behind. Vegetation here is extremely sparse, limited strictly to resilient shrubs and isolated poplar trees that manage to tap into deep, hidden moisture reserves. For much of the year, the desert is swept by fierce, icy drafts moving off the nearby glaciers. The stark juxtaposition of rolling desert sand against the jagged Karakoram peaks highlights the extreme environmental diversity contained within a single geographic region. As the seasons shift and the snow finally melts, the stark white expanse reverts back to an arid, dusty basin. Traveling across this high-altitude wasteland requires specific preparation, as the rapid temperature drops and sudden windstorms can create highly hazardous conditions for anyone caught without adequate shelter. This terrain isolates the communities living on its periphery, forcing them to rely heavily on the few established routes that cut through the mountains to maintain their vital supply lines. The most critical of these routes is a monumental feat of modern infrastructure, demanding constant maintenance to ensure safe passage against the ongoing threat of extreme elemental exposure. The Karakoram Highway is the primary artery cutting through this severe landscape. Stretching roughly 1,300 kilometers, it connects the Punjab province of Pakistan directly to the Xinjiang region of China. Construction of this monumental road took 20 years to complete and required cutting directly through solid rock faces, using dynamite and manual labor. The project claimed the lives of 810 workers due to frequent landslides, extreme falls, and severe weather conditions. Today, it stands as one of the highest paved international roads in the world, reaching a maximum elevation of 4,693 meters at the Hunza Pass. The highway traces the exact paths of the ancient Silk Road, functioning as a vital economic corridor for international trade. Vehicles navigating this route must constantly maneuver around sharp, blind corners and sheer drop-offs that plunge thousands of meters into the river valleys below, making it an incredibly tense and dangerous passage for commercial transport. The relentless geological pressure ensures that falling rocks constantly threaten to block the asphalt entirely on a daily basis. Tucked away in the Skardu district, at an elevation of 2,500 meters, is Lower Kachura Lake. This deep basin of cold water is famous for the Shangri-La Resort, easily identified by its distinctive red pagoda-style architecture built directly along the shoreline. The lake is entirely fed by glacial meltwater, keeping its temperature extremely low throughout the year. During the winter, the surface completely freezes over, trapping air bubbles in the thick ice. The surrounding slopes are densely packed with apricot and apple orchards, which turn vibrant shades of red and gold during the autumn months. The lake provides a rare zone of sheltered calm, offering a stark contrast to the violent rivers and harsh winds that characterize the majority of the high northern geography. Back on the winding mountain passes, heavy commercial transport relies heavily on localized cultural expression. Trucks operating on these dangerous routes are covered entirely in intricate, hand-painted artwork. This practice, known as truck art, features complex geometric patterns, floral designs, and regional calligraphy. The dense layers of paint and metalwork serve as a moving cultural canvas. Drivers spend significant resources decorating their vehicles, transforming massive industrial machines into highly personalized art pieces. These vividly colored trucks cut through the gray, dust-covered mountain roads, creating a striking visual procession that defines the modern logistical backbone of the region and its economy. From the ancient, heavily fortified mud walls of the Cholistan Desert to the lethal, ice-covered summit ridges of K2, Pakistan is defined by its sheer geographical volatility. It is a nation where tectonic collisions continue to push the Earth upward, and where vast river systems carve deep into the bedrock. Human presence here has adapted to the extremes, building massive urban centers on the fertile plains and engineering high-altitude bridges over violent glacial waters. The land holds the physical records of ancient empires, nomadic trade routes, and a biodiversity built for survival in the harshest climates. You have seen a landscape of deep verticality, immense heat, and frozen isolation. This territory demands absolute resilience from everything that exists within it. It is a complex, formidable intersection of geology and human history, defined strictly by the absolute physical limits of the natural world. Pakistan stands not just as a location on a map, but as a bold testament to human adaptation and survival.